Somewhere on the internet, there is a chart of your body on a fast. 12 hours, growth hormone. 16, autophagy. 24, fat burning. 48, stem cells. It gets copied from video to video until it looks like settled science. Some of it is measured in humans. A lot of it is not. This is the same story, with the receipts attached. Here is what we are going to cover. What actually happens hour by hour when you stop eating? Which numbers come from human measurements? And which ones come from mice? Whether fasting speeds your metabolism up or slows it down. Whether you lose muscle, and what happens to hunger. Which version of fasting works best, and what actually decides whether you lose weight. Every claim gets a source on screen. Where the evidence is thin, we will say so instead of rounding up. Start at 0. You have just eaten. Glucose enters your blood, insulin rises, and insulin does two jobs at once. It moves sugar into your cells for energy or storage. And it tells your body to stop burning fat because fuel just arrived. That second job is the one that matters for everything that follows. 4 to 12 hours later, that signal fades. Insulin drops, and your liver takes over the job of keeping blood sugar steady. It does that by releasing stored glucose, called glycogen. After an overnight fast, about 2/3 of your blood sugar still comes from that store. The rest your body builds from scratch, out of things like amino acids and glycerol. Stretch the fast to 60 hours, and the ratio flips almost completely. These are measured numbers from people using stable isotopes. Falling insulin also takes the brake off growth hormone. In healthy adults, a 24-hour fast raises growth hormone several times above baseline. That one is solid. Measured in humans, repeated many times, not controversial. What it does not mean is that you are building muscle while you fast. It means the signal goes up. Somewhere in this window, your body changes its main fuel. People call it the metabolic switch. The published range is 12 to 36 hours. Not one number. It depends on how much glycogen you started with and how much you move. Someone who ran this morning gets there faster than someone who did not. And when people say fat burning, there is an actual measurement behind it. It is called respiratory quotient, the ratio of carbon dioxide you breathe out to oxygen you take in. Burning carbohydrate and burning fat produce different ratios. So fat burning is not a feeling. It is a number you can measure in a lab. As fat gets mobilized, your liver converts part of it into ketones. Ketones are a fuel your brain and heart can use when glucose is limited. They rise gradually, not at a fixed hour, and how fast they rise depends on the same two things: your stores and your activity. Now, a fear you have definitely heard. Does fasting slow your metabolism down? In short fasts, the opposite happens. In one study, resting energy expenditure went up between day 1 and day 3 of fasting. The driver was noradrenaline, which roughly doubled by day 4. Your body ramps up when food runs short. It does not shut down. That is short-term. Long, repeated restriction is a different question, and this study does not answer it. What about hunger? Most people assume it climbs and never stops. It does not. Ghrelin, the main hunger hormone, comes in waves. It rises around the times you normally eat and falls again if you do not, which is why hunger often passes on its own and why it is partly a habit, not just a signal. Which brings us to the most repeated claim of all. Autophagy starts at 18 hours. Autophagy is real. Your cells recycle damaged parts, and fasting does increase it. The problem is the number. Autophagy is extremely hard to measure in a living person. You would need tissue samples, so most of the clean data comes from animals and from cells in a dish. Reviews of this literature say it plainly. No human study has measured when autophagy starts during a fast. The 12 to 36-hour window you see quoted is carried over from animal experiments. The human muscle studies that do exist disagree with each other. In one, 36 hours of fasting move the markers only in the untrained subjects and not in the trained ones. That does not mean nothing happens when you fast. It means nobody has measured the hour in a living person yet. So when a chart hands you an exact hour, That hour is not coming from a human measurement. Next question. Do you lose muscle? Some protein does get used, especially early on. But in a 7-day fast, nitrogen excretion fell from about 15 grams a day to about 10. That is the body switching on protein sparing. It gets more careful, not less. On the scale, most of what was lost looked like lean mass. 4.6 kilograms against 1.4 of fat. But lean mass on a scale includes water and glycogen, and both fall fast when you stop eating. And maximum strength was unchanged at the end of the week. Endurance was not. Peak oxygen uptake dropped by about 13%. That splits neatly into practical advice about training. Strength work is mostly fine. Maximum strength held for a full week without food. Endurance is where you feel it, because that runs on the glycogen you just spent. So a heavy lift in a fasted state is a very different ask than a long run. And if you train hard the day before, you arrive at the fast with less stored fuel, which is the same variable that moves the fuel switch. It is all one system. Before the results, one skill worth more than any of these numbers. How to tell a real claim from a copied one. First, ask whether it was measured in humans or in mice. A lot of fasting content quotes mouse studies as if they were human results. Second, ask whether they measured an outcome or a marker. A marker moving is not the same as you getting healthier. Third, be suspicious of exact hours. Biology varies between people. A number with no range attached is usually a number someone copied. So, with all of that going on, why does fasting work for weight loss? Because of the simplest thing on the list. When calories are matched, fasting and ordinary calorie restriction give similar results. A shorter eating window helps because most people eat less inside it. That is the mechanism, not a switch that flips at a certain hour. The hormones are real. They are just not what moves the number on the scale. Which raises the obvious question. Which version should you do? The 3 common ones are 16-8, 5-2, and alternate day fasting. Trials have compared them directly. Alternate day fasting comes out slightly ahead on weight, by about 1 to 1.5 kilograms. But read the reason. Researchers attribute that edge mainly to a larger calorie deficit, not to anything special about the schedule. And it is the hardest one to stick to, which is the honest answer to the whole question. The best version is the one you actually keep doing. One caveat, because it is the strongest argument on the other side. In a 5-week trial, men with prediabetes ate all their food in a 6-hour window ending in the afternoon. Their food and their weight were held steady on purpose. Insulin sensitivity and blood pressure still improved. No weight lost, real change measured. So timing is not nothing. It was 8 men in one study, so it is a lead, not a conclusion. But it is the kind of result worth watching, and it is measured in humans. One more thing these studies will not tell you, and it matters. Look at who was allowed into them. Fasting trials are typically run in healthy adults or in one specific patient group. Pregnancy, a history of eating disorders, and type 1 diabetes are routinely excluded. That is not a warning we invented. It is a description of the studies themselves. So when a result is quoted as if it applies to everyone, it is being stretched past the people it was measured in. There are also claims we deliberately left out. Shrinking tumors, protecting the body during chemotherapy, killing off fungus, mold, and parasites, curing gut conditions. Those come from animal work, from very early research, or from nowhere at all. Repeating them to a general audience does real harm, so we did not. So quickly, what we actually know. Insulin falls, and your liver takes over. Measured. Growth hormone rises several-fold in 24 hours. Measured. The fuel switch happens somewhere between 12 and 36 hours. A range, not an hour. Metabolism goes up in a short fast, not down. Measured. Hunger comes in waves and partly follows your habits. Measured. Autophagy is real, but the 18-hour number is not a human measurement. Strength holds for about a week. Endurance drops. And weight loss still tracks calories, whichever schedule you pick. Fasting does real things to your body. It just does not do them on a schedule you can read off a chart.